A young woman once stepped through the heavy gates of the most formidable palace on earth. She possessed no title, held no rank, and carried a name the court scribes had not yet deemed worthy of an accurate record. The Tang court was a place of obsessive categorization, an official hierarchy for every living thing, from high ministers down to the emperor's hunting dogs. This girl sat somewhere near the bottom of that list, a minor concubine, a piece of living furniture meant for the background. Her name was Wu Zetian. 50 years later, she did not just occupy the palace, she owned it. She held the throne, commanded the military, and dictated the economic fate of 100 million people. She became the only woman in 3,000 years of Chinese history to rule as emperor in her own name. But here's what nobody asks. How did she actually pay for it all? The racket she inherited? The world Wu Zetian entered was far more sophisticated than most realize. By 650 AD, Chang'an was a sprawling metropolis of over 1 million residents. Rome at its peak had never reached such scale. London at this same moment was a muddy collection of huts where a few thousand people bartered over livestock. China was the center of global gravity. Yet beneath the silk and poetry, the empire ran on a massive, entrenched racket. 300 aristocratic families controlled everything. Land, trade routes, tax collection, military appointments, all locked inside a hereditary system that had not been challenged in centuries. These families didn't just own wealth, they were the state. They decided who paid taxes and who didn't. Unsurprisingly, they decided they didn't. The result was a Chinese economy strangling itself. The imperial treasury was perpetually empty, while provincial aristocratic coffers overflowed. Peasants, crushed by informal aristocratic taxes, abandoned their land. Agricultural output collapsed. The army went unpaid. When Wu Zetian finally seized the throne, she didn't inherit a golden empire, she inherited a financial crisis. And her solution would break every rule the aristocracy had written. The first move, land reform. Wu Zetian understood something her male predecessors had missed. Power doesn't flow from titles, it flows from who controls the land. And the aristocrats had all of it. Her first economic strike was surgical. She introduced the equal field system, but with a twist no one expected. She actually enforced it. Every adult male peasant received a fixed allocation of land, 80 mu for grain, 20 mu for mulberry trees. When they died, the land returned to the state for redistribution. No one family could accumulate forever. This sounds bureaucratic, it was revolutionary. Suddenly, millions of peasants who had been renting from aristocratic landlords at starvation rates now worked their own land. They paid taxes directly to the imperial treasury, not to some local nobleman's pocket. Agricultural output surged, tax revenue doubled in under a decade. The aristocratic families screamed betrayal, but Wu Zetian had already calculated the math. 100 million peasants paying small taxes was worth infinitely more than 300 families paying nothing. And she was just getting started. The merit system destroying the old guard. The second pillar of aristocratic power was the civil service. For centuries, government positions passed from father to son like family heirlooms. Competence was irrelevant. Birth was everything. Wu Zetian expanded the imperial examination system to levels never seen before. She opened the exams to commoners. She created a military examination track separate from the aristocratic military families. She personally administered the final round of examinations in the palace, looking every candidate in the eye, making it clear that loyalty belonged to her, not to some ancient family name. The result was devastating for the old guard. Within a generation, the percentage of aristocratic officials in government collapsed. In their place rose a new class, the meritocrats, scholars from modest families who owed everything, their position, their salary, their future, to Wu Zetian alone. This was not idealism, this was economics. A government run by competent loyalists collects more taxes, enforces laws more efficiently, and doesn't skim half the revenue before it reaches the treasury. The aristocracy didn't lose power because Wu Zetian was cruel, they lost power because they were expensive. The Silk Road and the Bronze Coin Crisis. By 680 AD, Wu Zetian's domestic reforms had filled the imperial treasury. But now she faced a problem her predecessors never anticipated. China was out of money. Literally. The Tang economy ran on bronze coins, a physical currency system dependent on copper mining. But the mines couldn't keep up with the economic explosion her reforms had triggered. There simply weren't enough coins in circulation. Merchants couldn't trade. Soldiers couldn't be paid. The economy she had built was suffocating on its own success. Wu Zetian's solution was genius-level pragmatism. She expanded the Silk Road westward aggressively, not for luxury goods, but for raw copper. She reopened mines, abandoned under previous emperors. She standardized coin production so counterfeiters couldn't flood the market. And most radically, she introduced China's first large-scale use of paper receipts backed by government deposits, a protocurrency system 700 years ahead of its time. The Silk Road under Wu Zetian was not a romantic caravan of spices and poetry. It was a supply chain. Copper in, silk out, coins minted, soldiers paid, empire stable. She turned trade into a manufacturing process, and the treasury exploded. The price of power. But let's be honest about what this cost. Wu Zetian ruled for 45 years, and for 45 years, someone was always trying to kill her. The aristocratic families she had dismantled funded rebellion after rebellion. Court officials she had promoted plotted her assassination. Even her own sons attempted to remove her, and in one notorious case, she exiled them without hesitation. The economic miracle she built was real, but it required constant violence to maintain. When the old aristocratic families in the south refused to pay taxes, she sent the army. When Buddha's monasteries, the only institution wealthier than the aristocracy, criticized her rule, she seized temple lands and melted down bronze Buddha statues for coin production. Every economic reform had a body count. This is where the history gets uncomfortable. Wu Zetian was not a heroine in the modern sense. She was a ruler who understood that economic transformation requires breaking things, sometimes permanently, sometimes violently. The question her historians avoid is the one she would have found most obvious. What is the alternative? Let the 300 families continue strangling the empire while 100 million peasants starved? She made her choice, and the empire prospered. The legacy no one wants to talk about. Wu Zetian died in 705 AD at the age of 81. Within months, the aristocracy she had spent 50 years crushing began rewriting history. They portrayed her as a usurper, a murderess, a woman who had broken the natural order. But here's what they couldn't erase: the treasury. When Wu Zetian took power, the Tang court was effectively bankrupt. When she died, the imperial treasury was the richest it had been in 300 years. The land system she enforced fed 100 million people. The examination system she expanded produced the most competent government China had ever seen. The trade routes she fortified would fuel Chinese prosperity for another 2 centuries. The aristocrats could control the history books. They couldn't control the balance sheet. Her successors, all men, quietly maintained every major economic reform she had implemented. They cursed her name in public and copied her policies in private. Because whatever they thought of Wu Zetian, the woman, Wu Zetian the economist, had built something that simply worked. 1,300 years later, we still tell Wu Zetian's story as a scandal. The concubine who slept her way to power. The mother who destroyed her own children. The woman who dared to call herself emperor. But look at what she actually spent her reign doing. Not scheming in the bedroom, rebuilding the tax code, not seducing generals, restructuring land ownership, not poisoning rivals, fixing the money supply. The scandals make for better stories. The economics built an empire. Wu Zetian understood something we keep forgetting. Power is not the crown. Power is the quiet desperation of a Tuesday morning, when the treasury is low, the bills are due, and half the court is actively plotting your demise. She didn't just survive those mornings. She turned them into the richest dynasty China had ever seen. And she did it as the only woman who ever held the throne.